Well, Congressman, lots of things going on right now. We had one of your colleagues on the other day. His name was John Micah.
John Micah,
Florida.
No, John.
And he's seriously considering cutting out high-speed rail between Chicago and St. Louis. How do you feel about that?
Well, we also saw the governor of Wisconsin turn down the high-speed rail money because they can't afford the state share. I think really what's interesting now is to listen to the buzz on the Deficit Reduction Commission. This is not the official report, but it is some highlights of really the tough things you have to do if you want to get the budget under control. I mean, really tough things. It's stuff that you've heard us talk about a lot. We've never done anything on it, in essence. And we think that this election is about those big issues. And I think we're going to be held accountable. So all type of spending is going to be on the table. Medicare, Medicaid, how to do it more efficiently, defense budgets, farm payments. I think the things that in the report, although you listen to the Washington, D.C. insiders, they're saying, well, none of this and we can't do that. I think that's a good start to help us start discussing getting our budget under control.
Yes, the report is going to come out later, and it's chaired by former Wyoming Senator Alan Simpson and Erskine Bowles, who was in the Clinton administration. So it's somewhat bipartisan, and for the votes to go in front of Congress, the commission itself, with 18 members, has to get 14 votes. If it does, some of these ideas will go in front of you. How about on the military side? The commission apparently has a bullseye on the back of the Marine Corps Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle, the Army's Ground Combat Vehicle, and one version of the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. Now, I know you're a military guy. Do you see any cuts in the military?
Well, when I first went to Washington, I remember Newt Gingrich saying, the Pentagon's so big, it ought to be at least a triangle. I mean, and we are top heavy, and procurement is a big cost. As an infantry guy, we want to make sure our troops are well maintained, well trained, well supplied, and can get to the places they need to go around the world. Now, the F-35 is a debate about the next generation fighter planes. It's a NATO plane. In other words, there's a coalition. And where will the Chinese be? Do we always have to stay a step ahead? Everything's going to be on the table. I think.
So you don't want to answer those questions?
Well, I think the fact that I'm a military guy saying that the military budget is on the table is a promising sign.
Okay, I think so too. How about the 150,000 military personnel in Asia and Europe?
I've always told people I'm not sure why you have people in some of these places 50 years after the end of World War II.
So, in other words, the tripwires laid down,
Well, asked about Japan. We still have troops in Korea. I think that's a legit area because of the threat from North Korea. But to Japan, or what about West Germany, where I served during the Cold War? It made sense. NATO's important, but can we redeploy some of those troops? I think we can.
How much, to what age do you think I should have to work before I start collecting Social Security?
You personally?
Yes.
78. But everybody else, no. 62 was established in what, 1933? So if we just did longevity, I think that's all part of Social Security reform, and it could go as high as 68, 69, 70. I think the seniors shouldn't be afraid. It would be phased in, as the report says, in 12 years or 5 years from now. But we send a signal. If we're willing to address Social Security with addressing the ceiling, as was one of the other proposals, or raising the tax rate on those who are above $113,000, or allowing people to then say, I'm so rich, this isn't even lunch money for me, that maybe they shouldn't. Those should all be on the table.
So, in other words, you're pretty serious about cutting the deficit.
We are dead serious.
How about
it has to happen.
What about the home mortgage interest deduction?
I think fairer, flatter, simpler on the tax code. This is a question I was going to ask you, Charlie. Would you pay a little bit more in taxes if you had a simple tax form?
Actually, that might save me money a long time because, the thousands I spend on tax planning.
I think the stress and strain of this abominable tax code that we have needs to be cleaned up, and I think that's part of the cleaning that up,
including eliminating the home mortgage interest deduction.
I think these many of the reductions that you have to look at have to be on the table.
It's Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day to you.
Thank you.
I saw a disturbing report out of California, which I think still bears a little more scrutiny. It was from the California Department of Public Health that indicated that veterans under 35 are at greater risk of death here in the United States, at least in California, than they are in Iraq or Afghanistan, that they're dying at a great rate due to motor vehicle accidents, that includes cars and motorcycles, suicide, and drug problems.
Mm-hmm. I know that the Veterans Affairs is really trying to get a handle on this. In the military, I spent time up at my alma mater, West Point. I'm on the Board of Visitors. We even talked about head trauma injuries based and slow response. A lot of the IEDs, they do that. It takes the brain a long time to recover. That might be slowness in response for motor vehicle accidents, self-medication on drugs, suicide. It is a scourge that I err. Unfortunately, I know I'm biased towards the military. I think over the past 2 or 3 years, they've really tried to mentor and watch these guys, and it still isn't succeeding.
Well, let's take some phone calls. Our guest today is Congressman John Shimkus, 314-436-7900, 800-925-1120. As it turns out, this is at least the second guest we've had on the program this week who graduated from West Point. The other, Colonel Jeff McCausland, who I think grew up in Beardstown, Illinois.
All right.
Is that in your district?
No, it's just right outside North. Yeah.
Very well. All right, 436-7900, 800-925-1120. Congressman John Shimkus is in the House. The scuttlebutt is that he's going to be the next chairman of the Energy Committee. We'll find out if that happens. And, boy, if that does happen, what are your opinions on nuclear power? Do you think that's a good alternative?
I'm a huge nuclear power guy. In fact, Illinois is a big nuclear power state. We have 11 different reactors in 6 different locations, and that's part of the solution, energy security.
Let's go to Wayne on line 1. Hello, Wayne.
Hi, good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
I hear so much talk recently about the changes in Social Security, and I'm sure everything should be considered, but I hear absolutely nothing about the retirement benefits for government workers, government employees, and it's my understanding that they are eligible to retire at an earlier age and at a higher rate.
Credible response. I don't know the answer to that. I will let you know. I know I'm under the federal retirement plan. Elected officials, we get vested after 5 or 6 years if you're elected. But then the regular employees, I think, have to have a 25 to 30-year career. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Well, if that is true, seniors this year got no COLA. Members of Congress did, right? You get an automatic pay increase.
Well, I think in this cycle we voted not to accept the automatic pay increase. But
did you?
There's an automatic. Of course, it was a very competitive political year, and the political forces helped constrain our ability to pay ourselves.
You ran for re-election saying no cuts to Medicare, right? On this program.
Well, the health care bill is $500 billion cut. That's what the health care law does, is $500 billion cut, with $500 billion in tax increases for a $1 trillion new federal program. That's kind of the way that works.
Do you still believe there should be no cuts to Medicare?
Well, I believe that Medicare should be reformed to be in a market-based system where people can have quality and choice and competition.
Let's go to Bill. Hi, Bill.
Hey, how you doing, Charlie?
Good.
I know Congressman Shimkus. You're a fine man, but could you answer a question, and it has to do with retirement. Is it true that if you're elected to Congress one term, do you receive any kind of pension? And if you do, can you define kind of what it is?
No, it's not true. I just said a couple minutes ago that you have to be vested, I think, at least 5 years. So you have to get elected and get reelected twice, in essence, to receive as an elected official. Then our rates are the same as a federal employee.
Marcus is next. Hi, Marcus.
Good morning, Charlie. Hey, I would just love to hear one of the politicians, just volunteer a pay cut in the pension. All of that is unsustainable. The government doesn't produce anything, but yet they're going to live high off the hog off of a pension that we, the people, are having to contribute to. And granted, to say that it's just a minor drop in the bucket, which won't amount to anything in deficit reduction, it will make me feel a hell of a lot better on knowing that they're going to take a cut, and a substantial cut. It's a tax increase or home mortgage deduction. Me not getting that is a ginormous drop in my bucket.
Yeah, but if I can jump in, I don't think I ever said it was a minor drop in the bucket. I'm not sure who he's quoting, but that's not what I said.
Let's go to Mike. Hi, Mike. You're on KMOX.
Hi, Charlie. Thanks for having me on. Congressman, I just want to ask two quick questions, and I'll get off and let you respond because I don't want to interrupt you. The first thing is, do you consider it appropriate that your personal views on the Bible that you espoused in the committee hearing in pertaining to global warming and the end of the earth, do you think that's appropriate? And secondly, I think in this day and age of politicians telling us what we're supposed to believe, if everybody would get on the Internet and understand that 2/3 of the budget of the deficit are because of tax cuts and because of two wars that we're fighting. Now, it isn't about entitlement programs. Sure, we can cut back on some of them, but I'm a middle-class guy, 63 years old, and I'll tell you what, I don't want you messing with the stuff that everybody else has got. Why shouldn't I be entitled to it? And as the other gentleman said, what are you guys cutting back as far as office staff and all kinds of expenses that you guys have?
That's a laundry list of questions. Can Congress cut back its office staff?
I think, yeah, we can. We in fact, we have to look at what people, actually members do give. Some members give back money every year from their budget account, and I'm not sure what we've done this year. But I think that the bigger point, the Debt Commission addressed the big issues of why we have a national debt. And it is because of Medicare. It's because of Social Security. They didn't talk about Medicaid because that's a shared responsibility with the state. They talked about defense. So the good thing about the Debt Commission is it's helping put in front of the American people the reason why we have a $13.5 trillion debt.
And actually, earmarks have almost nothing to do with the equation because they only amount to about $19 billion a year. And we're talking a $13 trillion debt. A trillion is 1,000 billion, correct?
Yeah, and you're right. And the earmarks just come off of what you're going to spend anyway. Now, we're going to do, the Republicans said, I think John Boehner said no earmarks this cycle too. We didn't do earmarks last cycle. So
how about I'm unfamiliar with the biblical reference during a House hearing.
Oh, we had a testimony on climate change. The Democrat majority brought in 2 theologians along with 3 other people to testify. In their testimony, written testimony, they quote the Bible. So I quoted the Bible. It was Genesis. I just said, I believe in that God would not destroy the earth through a flood. And I understand if some people don't believe that the Bible is God's word, but I do. And the premise was the world will not be destroyed by a flood. That's a basic biblical reference.
Oh, very interesting. And yet some who espouse global warming believe that it might.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk to Abe Foxman next hour from the Anti-Defamation League. He's the national director. Right now, we're going to let you go. Our guest has been Congressman John Shimkus, Republican of Illinois, and he's going to become a very powerful member of Congress.
Maybe.
Come January. Well, hey.
I got to get elected.
If you want to get that seat, don't tell them that you have any connection to this program. Hey, I want to thank you very much for joining us.